Working with the FAQ file, what we're trying to do is create a document that I can click on my different questions, the graphic changes, one displays, the others hide themselves as we work with it. So it only has one question answer available at any one time, closing the others. So that is what we're going to work to figuring out how to create. So with the document that we begin with, it has the stubbed out document ready function. So with jQuery, you've learned about that on your Code Academy exercises. But we need to do that so that all of the elements on our page are available. We can get away with using the document ready function to a degree by putting our script at the end of our document, which is how we did things earlier in the semester. So right now, though, we're going to use document ready, which is a very well crafted and constructed jQuery piece, and it makes sense to use that when we're using jQuery. So everything we write is going to be inside this chunk, starting with document ready and ending with end of ready. So everything in the next few minutes will be contained inside this chunk. So the first step that we want to do to make this happen is to get all the answers to hide themselves, because right now if we look at the document it looks like this. There's no functionality. I get my cursor changing because of CSS, so it indicates it's clickable, but all my answers are showing. So I want to hide those answers. So the way that we can do that is we can access those elements that are answers by using jQuery, and at this point I can use double or single quotes as I'm trying to access something. And I'm going to access my answer. So what that does is the $sign says I want to use the jQuery method to access all things that are of type .answer or of the class answer. So I look through and I can see how these paragraphs all have the answer class associated with them. So jQuery will tell all of those elements very quickly and easily to hide themselves. So I can say bye-bye. Now if I run my page and look at it, we'll see that the answers have disappeared. This is what it looked like before. This is what it looks like now. All the answers have disappeared, and now I need to find a way to bring them back. So now that the answers are hiding, I'm just going to put a comment in. Hide all the answers. Our next step is going to be to make the questions clickable. And the way that we can do that is we can attach the click behavior to each one of our questions. So to do that, I'm going to go and grab inside my main div, I'm going to grab all H2s. Now technically, because these are the only H2s on the whole page, I don't have to specify I'm trying to access the ones inside my main div, but I think it's good to get some familiarity with accessing things using a compound selector. So I'm selecting a div and then selecting an element within that, and I'm selecting that div based on its class. So I access a class and then all H2s within that class. So here's that class main, and now I'm grabbing all H2s. Now once I have done that, I am going to then attach jQuery's, and this is jQuery, not straight JavaScript's method to it. And we will create an anonymous function like this. And now I'd like to just put a note here and say end of click function. Now if I get rid of the extra returns here, we'll see what it looks like is inside my click, which has a parenthesis and a close parenthesis, I have included a function with my parentheses and my curly braces to close it out. Typically we just put all three of those on one line, and now we describe the behaviors or actions of that function here inside. And to do that, what I want to have happen is I want to be able to access the answer that is nearest to the question that is asked. And this is where jQuery becomes really powerful, is it's really easy to access child nodes or adjacent nodes within an element. So if I've accessed something, I know that the next tag, if I access my H2 down here, the next tag in line is going to be my paragraph. So I can now say I want to go grab the next thing, and I'm going to once again specify I'm grabbing it by my class. I'm not going to grab it by, say, paragraph, because I may have additional paragraphs somewhere else on my page. So I feel it's just safer to access them in this manner. Now, to do this and to reference what element I just clicked on, we get to use a relative naming scheme where I say this. So this is now in this context, bad use of double this, but in this context, this refers to the individual H2 that I clicked on. So by saying this, I'm not saying all H2s, I'm saying the one that was clicked on. So on that particular one, I want to grab the next element in my markup that has a class of answer. So now I can just say next, and now answer. So that grabs it, but we need to do something with that. Now, what we could do is just now simply say slide down. So clicking on it, we'll see I click the button and now it slides down. If I click on the next one, it slides down. Click on the next one, it slides down. So we are able to say I want the answer nearest to the one that I clicked on. I want it to slide down. Unfortunately, it doesn't slide back up yet. So that's problematic, and that's what we have to figure out. We can slide it down, but then if it's down, we want, when we click on it, to be able to slide it back up. So we need to figure out how to create that particular action. But I also forgot we want to change the pictures or the graphics in our item. So when I click on it, I refresh the page, I want the arrow to switch. And the way that we're doing that is not by rotating it, because we're using it just as a background element, but by swapping out the class. So we have our first image or our second image. Now there would be more advanced CSS techniques we could use where we could have a single kind of icons image that would contain both of them, and we could then specify through image offset which one we wanted to see. But I think right now it's easier just to keep it as two separate images. So as I have those two images and want to apply those, first I'll put a comment here and just remind myself that this will reveal the answer. And then next what I want to do is I want to change the image icon. And to change the image icon, what we need to do is to change its class. And this is where jQuery kicks butt, because I can just simply say, let's remove the class that's on there, so I don't have to think or ask them like, well, which one is currently on? We'll just remove this, because we know it started there. So remove class. And now we specify what class I'm removing. And I remove my open class. And then I will just simply say this, add class. And at this point, it should become very apparent that when I said do the jQuery modules on Codecademy, that we're just changing classes, we're selecting elements, and we're doing some basic effects for reveals of hide, show, and we can have slides, and we're playing with it that way. So now if I look at this and click, we'll see that the image does change as we go through. But again, we can't get them to go away yet. For the next step to make them go away, we're going to change this just a little bit, and we're going to store the answer object that we want to work with here as a variable, because we will be referring to it a few times. So it's going to require some juggling around of how we look at this. So our revealing our answer is going to switch from being 1 line to 2 lines. And what we're going to do is say var current answer. And one word about creating variables: if I create a variable and use the $sign in front of it versus not using a $sign in front of it, one of the rationale for doing this is anytime I'm creating a variable that refers to an object that I'm accessing through jQuery, one convention that some coders like to use is they put a $sign in front of it. When I have $sign and then parentheses inside JavaScript always indicate that you are doing something. Whatever is in parentheses means I'm doing something. So $sign and just parentheses is a shorthand way of writing out. So it would be the same as saying jQuery like this. But if we just skip the word jQuery, it's smart enough to know that's what we meant. But that's how jQuery is constructed. $sign with parentheses means I'm now doing something with jQuery. But if I do a $sign in front of a variable name, a reason for doing that is then we know this is a variable that is accessing something through jQuery versus a variable that exists kind of independent of jQuery. So we don't have to do this, but a lot of examples and conventions of working with jQuery do demonstrate that as a way of working. So when you look at jQuery code, you see $signs everywhere, to the point that they become confusing or annoying or otherwise just, well, they're just what they are. Now this next part is just going to be a rehash of this, so there's no reason to retype it. You can paste that. And then our next line is just to say current answer dot slide down. So those 2 lines of code are doing the same as the 1 line of code. But if we've done it this way, before we slide down our answer, what we want to do is check if the answer is actually, or not actually, currently visible. So first we check, and then so we ask a question here, and we say if current answer is, and this is where jQuery is just so awesome. So we say current answer dot is, and then we are checking its property of hidden, meaning it's not visible right now. So if current answer is hidden, at that point we are going to do something. So if the answer is hidden, what we want to do is slide it down, and we'll just move these up here because that's where I need them. Move them over so it's nice and tidy. So if the answer is hidden, it's going to come down. Now if I test this, it should work the same as it did before. We haven't added back in any functionality to make it go away, but it's getting really close, because now we can say, well, if the answer is hidden, we want it to show, and our other situation is the answer is not hidden, so we use else. And we don't need to do else if, because in this situation we only have 2 options. It's hidden or it's not. And if it's not hidden, at that point we want to tell our current answer to slide up. And then we need to change the image icon. And we'll swap those around. Change it, remove close, and add open. So now if I test this, we'll see. You can click on the question and it works. Now what it does have is I can have all questions open right now. And there are some situations where that is what we prefer, and sometimes we want it so if one answer is open, if we open another one, it closes the previous ones. So FAQs usually work in one of those two functional methods. So now, one level of functionality is there. The only other option is if we want it so that it hides all the answers before it does things, then what we can do is we can add that in where it will get rid of or hide different things. And what we can say is if, we just add another if in here, and then we'll just access all of our answers. And once again with jQuery I can use single or double quotes, so it doesn't matter. So if you notice in the code I've used a bunch of them, and it flip-flops. It kind of depends on is my pinky finger hitting the shift key or not in a timely manner. So if the answer is visible, which is the opposite of hidden, so if an answer is visible, and let's make sure my parentheses match, parenthesis to parenthesis like that. So if an answer is visible, then what we want to do is tell it to slide up, and then we will remove the closed class and add in the open class, and then we will modify the current answer with how we actually want it to be. So this will tidy up all of them. So it just cycles through everything. I started typing and it just dawned on me that this is being overly complex because all we really want to do is just tell all answers. So we don't even have to check if it's visible. We can just tell all answers to be hidden and then set the class for the headlines and get that all squared away, and then just make the current answer reveal itself, so it will take care of everything. So we don't actually have to wrap it into an if. I'm going to leave that there commented out though, just because I like the visible just as a reminder that we have hidden and visible as our two options. But all we really need to do is just to go grab all answers, slide up, and if they're already up it doesn't do anything, and then we are going to remove because they start out with open. So if they are currently open, they would have a class of remove, or they would have a class of close that we have to get rid of. So we'll just put that up here, paste it in. So now we have close and open set up. So this tidies the space. Tidy the answers. And then we make the current one reveal itself and update its classes appropriately. So when we view it, click on one, click on the next. So we only get one answer at a time. And so far, in all use cases, it does seem to behave appropriately. And in case you're wondering, the red lines showing around everything, this is when you're dealing with visibility of elements and making things come and go and concerned about your page layout. Remember, it's always just a really useful technique just to have a simple style attached to everything. The star is the wild card. And you just do border 1 pixel solid and red. And when you do that, then everything gets a red border on it so you can see where things are. Because otherwise, many times when you're trying to do your CSS and your layout and other stuff, you get confused and you're not sure, am I seeing what I should see? Is the right stuff on screen? And setting it up this way usually helps to clarify that. So good luck incorporating some of this into your project, and keep in mind that this is now, and this is really all of it that we see on screen here. This is not the only way to go about doing this, but because we need the more granular control of doing more than one thing, we're sliding, we're affecting classes and doing it to different elements. just using a toggle class and toggle slide and things like that aren't always going to be the easiest solution, because we can't affect multiple or different things at the same time. So it makes sense sometimes to do it in a little more manual approach. Now, if you can get it working with those, great. And I look forward to the answers that each of you are able to come up with.